So now we're going to take a look at this teaching stack. Now I could have put one together myself, but there was already a good one out there that I figured would be really nice to showcase. This was a showing by am I going to say this Hitan632. Feel free to laugh at that one if you want. Anyways, he did make a 3-1 show with this. It's a pretty standard teaching stack. Something I would have put together. May have had one less teachings, but would have been somewhere the same lines. Now, anyone who checked out, saw the first video I did with the Franken baby, knows what I'm talking about when I say that this is kind of the ideal version of that. Anyone who didn't, feel free to tab over and check that one out from my profile there, my channel. So this is bringing together some of the best creatures in both mono blue and mono black. With black, you bring in both rats to work on the discard hand control aspect, and the blue creatures he brought in here are the ninja and the Maul Drifter for the card draw. So now you're starting to build your teachings package. He's running 4 teachings. I oftentimes will end up citing one of these out in the test games I did with this deck. That's just personal preference, but you do like to have the ability to search out cards from your quote-unquote toolbox of spells. And you see that's why there's only 1 soul manipulation, there's 1 negate, 1 harvest, exclude, etc. You want to have as many spells as possible to get the kind of the max draw out of the teachings. This is great. He brings in the Agony Warp, which is the main reason to be running blue-black. It's a really cool kill spell, 2 cost, and it's kind of like Echoing Decay. Echoing Decay only does -2/-2, though it does hit multiple bodies. But anyways, Agony Warp is a great control spell during like combat and stuff. You can get some good plays off that. Brings in your regulars, counterspell, some creature control through the Decay, the Blade, the Edict. And when you're running a deck like this, you kind of want to be heavier on the creature control. There are a lot of strong aggro decks out there in the current meta. These can be cited out later on for things like Duress or Hydroblast, if necessary. But for the most part, you're going to want to keep it. It's nice having these as 2 of. Like I said, you want to be able to maximize your use of teachings. Now, the mana base you are running for Aqueducts is only 24 lands. You can thin it out with the Terramorphics, but you're still sitting pretty nice. You can run into an occasional issue with the Aqueduct, but since there's only 4 of those, it shouldn't happen too often where you are tapped out and don't have mana available. Now you notice every spell in this package is instant speed, so that's kind of the ideal thing you want in a teaching stack. You want to be able to find anything, and you can find any non-creature spell in this deck with teachings. I will, on occasion, say turn 4, nothing's really happening, I have no need to play. At the end of my opponent's turn, in 4 mana, I will cast a teachings and find another teachings, just to thin a card out of my deck, just to get one in my graveyard. It's just one of those weird things I do, something to consider. You have this figure, which you can bring in, I suggest mostly for the mono blue matchup, because you have the ability to use it to kill the bears. It also has some use in most aggro, anything where you want to kill something for -2/-2. Doomblades are good for targeted kill when that's necessary. The Duress you're going to want to bring in for the control matchup. Hydroblasts, etc. Versus the Izzet control specifically. Any Storm deck, the Goblins deck, etc. And then you run 4 Shrivel, and in my version I might cut this down. I think 4 is a bit much. You do run into, and you'll see this in one of the games I show you in a sec here, this situation where versus the Empty the Warren Storm, you can bring in 4 Shrivel, 4 Hydroblast, and 4 Duress, and that's pretty disgusting. But the one thing I will also say is that you can replace this, if you're not aware, with Nausea. Just if you don't have the Shrivels and you do have Nausea, it's basically the same spell. So let's take a look at this game right here. With teachings, this is in the tournament room is a pretty good starting hand. I will be able to play a Rats on turn 2, which is going to be one of your best bets for the starting of this. Now my opponent started with one of these Masks lands, and you know right away that he is going to be playing Storm. in most cases it's going to be the Storm version with Empty the Warrens in blue-red. So I'm still hoping that um, I could have made a play here to try and have the Echoing Decay up and ready if he goes up on turn 2. But I'm going to go on the assumption that he's not going to go off this early and actually make a bit of a wild play and put the rats out first. Because he did mulligan to 6, this is a more likely scenario that he will not be able to combo off on this turn. And I can play the rats and slow him down even more. It really sucks. They will oftentimes mulligan to kind of get the Empty the Warrens in their hand, or the key pieces they need to have this matchup go off on turn 2 or 3. So I'm going to go on the assumption that he's not going to be able to go off on turn 2, and he didn't, and now I'm going to play the rats in order to force him to discard, and with a 3-card hand, I'm going to also make a wild assumption that he is not going to be able to go off on turn 3. This again could be a bad play, and depending on your opponent, I'm going on the limb because he did have to mulligan down. He did go first, he mulliganed down, so he was not on the draw, and I think it gives me an advantage. Now he drops off the Bushwhacker, so I'm assuming that if he is able to go off, I will be at an advantage. I do have Echoing Decay in my hand, and I will be able to play it. Let's fast forward this. He does actually manage to get this off on turn 3, but as you see, because he was forced to discard and discarded the Bushwhacker, he is unable to get that haste. If he had that, he would have been able to pay that extra 2. He would go in for the kill. I would be able to block 1, but I think he would still have enough damage. I'm not going to do the math, I'm not good at it on the fast pace, but anyways, he didn't have the Bushwhacker, so he was unable to get the haste. Now it's my turn. I'm just simply going to cast Echoing Decay, and he's going to concede, and rightfully so. He's only got 1 land in play, he's emptied his hand down to 1. Kind of with any combo deck featuring Empty the Warrens, especially in when you're playing in Pauper, and this is the only combo that they will be able to storm, really, is Empty the Warrens. You will be able to kind of call it game at this point, because once they go off, it's pretty much game over. Like the legacy games and such with Ad Nausea, it's or Ad Nause, however you want to say it, they have the ability to not worry about this. But in Pauper, the biggest threat is going to be Warren. So once those goblins come out, if I can wipe the board through Echoing Decay, then it's a win. Quick look right here at what I sided in. This is kind of funny. I did go through, close this 1 minute, and I managed to side in all of these cards. Now you might think that's a little crazy. It kind of is. That is 12 cards that I sideboarded in, but you have kind of the ability to do so since you're running the Teachings package and a lot of 1-of toolbox. So I took out right away the Exclude came out, the Grim Harvest came out, the Soul Manip came out. They're not going to be hardcasting any spells in this version, so any creature spells, that is, sorry. So I was able to switch those in. The Edicts come out, that's not going to help you. If anything, the Doomblades could be some help, but not the Edicts. Now, I was able to, also, I cut the Teachings down. I figured, if I get any of these cards in hand, I'm sitting pretty well in the game too. So I can cut the Teachings down a little bit as well. You really want to kind of maximize, it's pretty good at this. You have the 4 Nausea, so if he is unable to attack, does not get the haste in the Bushwhacker, then you can GG off that. So this was my hand in game 2, as you see. He's kind of at a bad place already. I do get the Hydroblast, I do have Echoing Decay, I do have Nausea. So I won't be able to, again, play until turn 3 without drawing a land. I will be able to play turn 1 on Island, turn 2 the Aqueduct if I don't draw a land, and will not have the 2 untapped land until turn 3. So that puts me at a little bit of a disadvantage. If he does have the haste again, I could be in trouble. But I really don't have a choice in this. And I can keep this one open if he starts trying to go off on turn 1. Very hard to do, but sometimes you manage that perfect hand. I can Hydroblast to slow him down, maybe stop it. Now I draw a second Hydroblast, I'm going to be able to put the Aqueduct in play, and the first thing I'm going to get rid of is Counterspell. At this point in time, Counterspell is not a huge advantage. I can stop a draw, I can stop one of the initial red manas, red mana spells, but, really here, the best option I think I have is with the Decay and the Nausea. Counterspell is going to be too slow. Especially now he plays a second Needle, so that he's going to have extra red mana when he finally is able to combo off. So Counterspell was too slow. I really kind of wanted the instant ability to cast Echoing Decay, and I will have an extra Hydroblast to back that up if he decided to sideboard in Pyroblast, which he will do. So now I was a little irritated though. Probe comes down. He's going to see this pretty fantastic hand I had here. Um, so it's gonna slow him down. He may wait till he gets a Pyroblast in hand or something, but even that's not going to protect him against Echoing Decay. He's gonna kind of have to. Honestly, his only answer here is to wait until I have tapped out my only black source and be able to go off with the Bushwhacker. If I keep this black mana open the entire game and play around it, then he's lost. This game is actually over before it really started. Once I have this, like I said, once I have the instant ability to do this, he can sideboard in Pyroblasts. In most cases, they won't have any other counter spells to really help out against the Echoing Decays. Sorry. So he's gonna play some cards, and he's kind of dicking around with whether or not he's actually going to be able to, combo out and get it into play. At this point, I use a Teachings to find a Teachings, which may be a little weird to some people, but it thins a card out of my deck. It gives me the option to flash it back. It has one in hand still. I just, there was nothing else I can grab. I could have grabbed the second Echoing Decay, so that if there was some reason that the first one got, discarded or counterspelled, that I would have the second. But in most cases, I treated this like any other game. I figured it was over already because of all the answers I had, and just traded a Mystical Teachings for a Mystical Teachings. So now my opponent's going to take his turn, and he's going to start sacking lands. He's going to start casting all his spells. Let's just hit play here. As you can see, they draw a whole bunch of cards. They duplicate their mana, and he's going to be able to combo off the goblins. And whether or not he actually has the Bushwhacker when he plays Empty the Warrens, I still have Echoing Decay, so they're all going to die. I mean, it's really his only option there is to combo it off once, hope that I cast Echoing Decay to kill it. But he does know, like I said, he had the probe earlier, so he saw that I have Nausea in hand as well. If he did not have the Bushwhacker here, I would just play Nausea to kill it. He would have to combo again. I do have Echoing Decay, he knows that as well. He would have to wait till the third time he was able to combo off to actually get the creatures to stay on the field. Or the second if he had the Bushwhacker on this turn, but he was really at a disadvantage here. So yeah, this game was pretty much over once I had the black mana in play. It's something to keep in mind versus this matchup. Okay, so this will be the second and last game I'm going to show you, and again, bear with me. This was versus Mono Blue Control, so I'm going to try and make it as fast as possible. And these are, I ran into that issue again where games did not get saved, so some of these are a one-take kill. When I say that I correct my mistakes in videos, I just mean that my mistakes in kind of narrating the play. So bear with me on that. But so this was the first game. It was pretty nice draw. I have the mana. I can get a rat on turn 2, and I have the ability to fetch out the blue for the counterspell. My opponent starts with a probe. I hate seeing probe. I don't know, it's one of my least favorite mechanics in this game. I hate when your opponent knows what you have in hand. It's just, it gives them an advantage. They can kind of judge better how they want to play around your hand. But as I always say, keep in mind where they saw the probe. I know that the last thing he saw here was the swamp, so anything I draw beyond this is going to be something he's not aware of. Just something to keep in mind later on. So Terramorphic, I do fetch an island. My opponent uses probe again, and now I know he's seen that I've drawn the Aqueduct, and he puts out a bear. Now, the bear is something I have to watch out for with the Echoing Decay, because it will not kill multiple bears, it will only kill one thanks to its triggered ability. So I draw a swamp, not too good, I don't want this much land, but I do have the ability to throw out the rats, and he throws away a sprite. I'm always happy to see that. The Delver comes down. I do have the Doomblade in hand. He knows that. I will cast the Edict now, because he's going to be forced to either counterspell it, leaving it open for the Doomblade later on, or get rid of the bear. And I played the Aqueduct since it comes in tap, and I don't have another play, so I'm not going to have any other mana to do anything this turn. He did have the counterspell, so that's going to be one less counterspell I have to worry about for the Delver. Excuse me, sorry. It's also important to note, always keep in mind the hand size of your opponent, and keep the revealed cards open in a separate window. just so you can keep track of these things. Another thing I like to do is keep my graveyard open over here, especially when playing this teachings deck, just as a reminder to yourself that if you're using soul manipulation, you know there's a creature in your graveyard, or if you're using teachings, you know it's sitting there waiting for it to be flashbacked. So he attacks me, uses the brainstorm, I can click that off of there. This is, you see, if I said if I had Echoing Decay, I would not be able to kill both bears, I can only kill one of those. Now, I'm going to still try to Doomblade the Delver, and it does go through. My opponent, you see, is down to one card in hand, so I had a pretty good chance that that was not going to be a counterspell. Even if it was, I did have this counterspell in hand, and the mana open to back that up. I'm still going to take some damage from the bears, but I do have the ability to chump block with the rats. You got to be pretty good about knowing when you can and cannot block, how much damage you can take, but it's definitely a good thing to, you know, take some damage. Don't be afraid to let your life drop a little bit. Especially in this matchup, he's not likely to have some big combo that's going to kill you off the bat. And again, my opponent doesn't have many cards in hand, so it is likely that he does not have a counterspell. So I do try to get Muldrifter in, and it is successful. I was going to attack with the rats there, but that would leave me open to 2 damage from bears. By leaving the rats untapped, I have the ability to block and trade a bear for the drifter, and chump block the rat as well. Like I said, you want to just kind of be aware of your own deck and how far in life you can go down, and that also comes into play with knowing your matchup as well. So fairies come down. I can Echoing Decay on the fairies. Just one of those things. I could have used it on the bear, but it felt like such a waste. I can still chump block with the rats this turn. And I will have the mana open to the end of the turn. I can attempt to use Mystical Teachings to find an answer for the bear, or whatever I may want. Opponent still sitting at 2 cards in hand, and clearly still no counterspell. So you see I draw the Doomblade, which I will use to kill off the bear, even though it is countered. And I use the Terramorphic to keep that land out of hand. Now you could have also, I could have tried to sneak the Ninja in there because my opponent has not been playing counterspells, but I did not have that opportunity. So you see there, I don't know if you caught that, it was real quick, but my opponent tapped and untapped an island. Now with 2 cards in hand and he hasn't been playing counterspells, what that tells me is that he has a creature in hand that he does not want to play right away. And the only creature that would be a Drake, if he did not have a creature in the graveyard and didn't know, a Sprite, which he's saving to counterspell a 1 casting cost creature, which is kind of silly against my deck, as I don't have any 1 casting cost spells, or it's a Ninja. So again, just, you know, it's good to know your opponent's deck and have that knowledge of the matchup. So you see, you know, a little mismove like that, and you gain a little knowledge. He's got the probes to see your hand directly, but a smart player can make the assumptions. And you see there, it was a Sprite that he was holding out, and I decided to counterspell it. At this point, I'm at 7 life. I've used quite a bit of creature kill already, so I don't want to. Oops, didn't mean to fast forward that. But anyways, I don't want to take too much damage, so I wanted to kill that right away. And you see, he did also hardcast there a Ninja. I used a Teachings and I grabbed Agony Warp, so that I could kill the Ninja and would not have to allow my opponent to draw cards. This time around, I draw rats, which is great. I always talked about, if you catch any of my other videos, about how discard is great with mono black, but there is something to be said for the rats, because instead of them losing a card and still being able to draw a new one, this one forces them to recycle it, so they're basically skipping a draw step, which can be equally as devastating, even in some cases more so. So the rat's going to come in and switch out for the Ninja, and I'm going to be able to replay that rat, so he skips yet another draw step. You gotta love that. He decides to concede to that, but that's a really strong play to get multiple rats. Mono Black loves that, and you can pull it off with this deck as well, thanks to the Ninja. So let me pull up the second game here. Like I said, I apologize, these are going to have to be kind of uncut, but I sideboarded in the Duress. I think that's kind of your best option for this matchup. You can also, I bring in the Duress, and I will bring in Doomblades, something a little more direct to kill off bears like that. The only downside to this Duress is the fact that I do not have a swamp, and I don't end up drawing one, so I'm going to have to use Terramorphic for a swamp, On my next turn, I'll be able to use that swamp to duress my opponent, and then play the Aqueduct. Drew another rat. That's great because I will have the mana open to play the rats on the next turn. And I see the only thing I can get rid of is the spell, and make a note that he has the Drake, he has the Ninja. So on my next turn, since I do not have, or on this turn, since I do not have another play, his next turn, he will be able to bring that Ninja into play and start hitting me with it. Another thing to keep in mind, like I said, remember what was there. I know there's a Drake, and he will not be able to play that until he is able to get me to kill a creature, which is going to be the Ninja in most cases, because you want your opponent to not be drawing as many cards as that. I do top deck the Echoing Decay and can play it. Choose to do the rats to slow down my opponent since he had only islands in hand. We see that last turn he did draw a Daze, so I am unable to do that. That's okay because it's one less counterspell that's going to prevent me from getting rid of the Ninja. Again, knowing my opponent's hand, I know that he drew into the fairies recently, and there should still be an island and a Drake in there, and I'm not sure what the third card is, but it's good to still have that kind of knowledge. Mono Blue will do, like I always said, if he's a smart player, hold on to lands to kind of bluff at the fact that he is a counterspell. But you still have to make the attempt at some point to kill the Ninja. You don't want, card draw is one thing, but repeated card draw that's dealing damage to you is quite another, and that has to go. But now he does have 3 mana, he has the creature in the graveyard, I know that I'm going to be sitting across from a Drake on my next turn. But there's not much I can do. See here, I'm holding onto the Ninjas. I could play them for the 4 casting cost, but it's just not the ideal play. If I have another play, I'm going to go for it. So here I'm looking for some answers. I'm going to hard cast the Drifter, and it will run into a Force Spike. So that's quite unfortunate. You see my opponent sitting across from 3, and the Drake still hasn't come out. So now the Drake is out. I'm going to drop to 6, and he's going to still have 6 damage on the table for the win. What I need to do to win this is draw a kill spell for the Drake, which I do not. At this point, I'm playing cards, and I'm going to jump block the bear so that I'm only taking 4. But he does have the Sprite in hand and manages to counter that. So that means he will have the kill on his next turn. You see here, I start to play the rats, and we'll use that instead to block the bear. It's going to keep me down to 1, but it's something, right? So opponent's going to go swing. Drew a 3rd Ninja. Really not a good draw, but what are you going to do about it? You can hardcast it, but there's no point at this point. He's got all flyers on the table, and you're at 1 life. So even if I drew a kill spell, even Echoing Decay, I would be unable to kill multiples, and I would still be dead. So we move on to game 3. This was my opening hand for game 3. Again, not too bad. I got the Terramorphic I can use to find that blue mana that I need so bad. Probes come out on turn 1. Again, really hate that, but I have no choice. And I know that he's seen up to this teachings. So he knows I have a Doomblade. It's kind of nice I draw a second one. He doesn't realize that I have that second one in hand. So Delver's going to come down. Like I said, I'm going to attempt to Doomblade it. He's probably going to have a counterspell, but the trick here is the fact that I have a second one. So he dazes. It's going to put him back a land, but he thinks that's a pretty good play because he's keeping his Delver on the table. Now I miss my 3rd land drop. That's kind of critical, but I am able to clear the Delver off the board, and that's, at least puts me in a more even position. Kind of almost like skipping a turn. So opponent's drawing some cards. I'm going to play the Aqueduct. I have no real choice of any other play there for the 2 mana that I had available. Probe comes down, so now I know that he's seen the Muldrifter. He knows the swamp's still there. Taps out for 3, and he does now that the Delver, is dead. He can bring out the Drake, and I kind of wish I had that Doomblade back. It is kind of unfortunate that I had to use 2 to kill a 1/1 creature, and it does get a little better that it becomes a 3/2 flyer, and it ate a counter spell. I also hoped that the land would slow him down, but he's, you see, already at 3 lands, so it really wasn't too big of a hindrance to him. So now I'm evoking the Muldrifter, hoping to leave mana open for Force Spike. I don't really need the creature right away. I could chump block, but we're still so early in the game that I'm sitting at full life, and I can take 3 damage without it being a big deal. And it's almost more important that I draw those cards at this point in time than being able to chump block 3 damage out of 20. You see, I also added the Disfigure. That's a good card for the bears because it's the spell you're going to use on the bear is going to be wasted, so you might as well just pay 1 for it. Again, don't really have a spell play here. I could drop the Ninja since he knows about it already. Um, I do use the Terramorphic to siphon out cards and leave mana open for counterspell. There isn't a ton of creature removal in this deck, so if anything comes down like a Golem or a Drake, then I want to be able to stop it before it actually comes into play. I also have the option here at the end of turn. I can use the Mystical Teachings to fetch something out, or you can hold on to it for later. This game maybe get to a critical point. Let me open up this graveyard just so we can keep an eye on that. Like I said, I usually, especially playing a deck with so much flashback, I will keep the graveyard open so that I'm just aware of what cards I have. So now I draw a Mull Drifter. I have the 1 mana open to protect this from the Force Spike. And when he plays 1, and you have the mana open to counter that 1, you know that a second one is coming, or a second counter spell. Probably at this point, a second Force Spike because you are now tapped out. And that's okay. It stops the card draw, but he is forced to get rid of 2 counter spells from his hand, so it's a fair trade in my mind. So the bear comes down. Like I said, I'm going to be able to use the Disfigure to kill that. It's nice to have, like I said, the 1 kill for it. Now I could have used that plus the Agony Warp to kill a Drake, but then I still have a bear in play that is going to be kind of troublesome, and I'm going to have to take the damage from, so I figured I would wait, try and get a Teachings off so I could find a direct kill for this Drake. Sorry, I didn't mean to fast forward that there, but I did try to hardcast the Ninja. Like I said, he knew about it, and he did counterspell it. The Ninjas are a great card when they already know that you've got them in hand. It's not so much of a surprise anymore, and you can just hardcast them when the situation comes to it. So you see here, I cast Teachings. He did not have a counterspell, or did not play the counterspell. A lot of times what an opponent will do is wait till you find that card that you want, the tutored card, and then counter the tutored card, so you wasted your mana. If he counters the Mystical Teachings, I still have 2 mana open. I could cast Negate, technically, or the Agony Warp, but that's something to note later on if you're playing a situation like that. You want to wait and counter the card that they tutor for. So I fetched Edict instead of a targeted kill because he only had 1 creature on the field, so it ends up being a targeted kill. If he had multiples, then fetching something more direct like a Doomblade or an Agony Warp would have been better. But you can use Edicts as direct kills when there's nothing else on the field. And you want to be aware of the situation. If there are, you're in a situation like this where you can use Edict to kill it, fetch the Edict and save the targeted kill for later on. If he has multiple creatures, you're going to want that targeted kill and not the Edict. So I attempt to negate the counterspell to get my Chittering Rats into play, and he did sideboard in Dispels. So I have no answer to that. The Rats are going to just have to wait. My opponent's sitting 2 cards in hand now. He's got a lot of land in play, so I think we're pretty good off. I've kind of gotten through a lot of his creatures and a decent amount of his counterspells. I have a Teachings here in graveyard and 1 in hand, so I'm going to be able to fetch out cards as needed. Here the Rats are going to kind of come down and try and be my MVP and get some damage through. Though it will take me 16 turns with just the Rats. He puts a Sprite out there. Now this is a 2-fold move. Your first, he could have it just as a chump blocker, or wants to get that attack damage through to finish me in 8 turns, knowing it's going to take me 16 to finish him. Or the more likely scenario is that he does have a second Sprite in his hand. So what I'm going to do is attempt to counterspell the Sprite. Now if he plays a second Sprite, it's just going to counterspell my counterspell, and the Sprite would come into play. He does dispel this, and I'm going to counterspell that again. Like I said, assuming that he does have that second Sprite, which he does. So it's gonna, just kind of cancel the stack, and keep one sprite in play. Now things get a little tricky. He top decked Spire Golem, but I do have, like I said, the Doomblades in there, and I drew a second Mystical Teaching, so I can use that and cast the Doomblade uninhibited because he has no cards in hand. And now I'm going to just have to deal with this sprite later on. Once I have the opportunity, he's not made a second play, I can use the Warp. It's a bit of overkill and I don't want to do it, but being at 7 life, you don't have much of a choice. So he top decks a second Spire Golem, and I'm going to have to again use Mystical Teachings, and thankfully I have them in hand so that I can cast the Doomblade right after to kill it off. Like I said, I have the kill for the sprite, and I will have to kill it eventually, but currently the Spire Golems were a bigger threat. So he's at one card at hand. Now I can finally use the the duress. It was a dead card until he actually had something in hand, and he allows me to take the counterspell since it's going to be a waste anyways. Now I can use that mana and kill off the sprite and keep attacking with the rat. So he draws a land, he's still got no cards in hand, and I'm going to sit on this Aqueduct to kind of bluff my hand. I have an Agony Warp, I have 3 Teachings in my graveyard, so I'm sitting pretty good at this point in time despite being at 5 life. So he top stack a Delver, but again, no cards in hand, so he is unable to do anything. Now I'm going to, instead of showing him this Agony Warp, I'm going to cast the 6 to bring back Mystical Teachings and use an Edict. Like I said, Edict is something you want to tutor out when you have a situation that it becomes a direct kill, since it is a weaker kill spell later on when there are multiple creatures on the board. Now usually, I said I keep lands in hand to bluff. I did use a Terramorphic there because, like I say a million times, I like to thin land out of my deck, especially in the mid game like this. So the rat's continuing his beating. Probably been like 6 or so turns now that he's swung through. Fairy's come into play. My opponent is now with 1 card in hand, but I don't know if it's a counterspell or not. I'm not too concerned about it. I have the ability to, yet again here you see, use the Mystical Teachings from my grave and grab the counterspell, so that if it is a counterspell, when I attempt to kill his Cloud of Fairies, I can stop it. And it's clearly not. The 1 card in his hand is going to be a land. When he doesn't have a spell, he doesn't play a creature, he doesn't play a counterspell, then you know it's going to be a land in his hand. So he's at 2 now. I'm guessing he drew into a second land at this point in time. Like I said, it's you kind of just get to know the way your opponent plays and the way most of them would. He actually did draw a Delver after a bit of a delay plays it, but I do have a counterspell in hand, and I'm able to stop that from coming down. So, again, 1 card in hand, still probably a land, since he's made no other plays. I will attack for the 1, I complete the Muldrifter, and I can draw in the cards, and it should stick to the table. You see, I've hit my land pocket here. Yeah, everyone gets to that point in the game. So yeah, sorry, double-clicked that, but he drew into a bear, he played an island, put the bear out. So, again, I knew that card in his hand was an island. He drew into the bear and put it out as a chump blocker, but I'm still going to swing for 2. Then I top decked off a rat. Even though he has no cards in hand, I'm going to put it into play so that I can try and beat him down faster. He realizes that the game's over and just decides that he should concede. So that's the look at this Teachings deck. Hopefully you guys check out the article I'm writing on Pure MTGO and look at the other blue-black decks that I have put together for Pauper.